have an amazing PD who's been working really hard with our schools to find solutions. There's more work to do. It's a work in progress. We're taking all the feedback we can get. So it's actually really nice to see everybody here today because we need to hear from you so that we know what we're doing, whether it's working or not. So our Assembly member Diane Dixon has been working hard. She introduced 2 bills.
Yes.
2 bills for e-bikes, and she's here to talk to you guys and let you know what's going on with those. So thank you all for coming.
Well, thank you, Mayor. It's the mayor's birthday today. Yes. So what we thought we would do, I'm here to talk about what we're doing at the state level, and Mayor McKeon and Gracie, the mayor, are going to be, council member and mayor, are going to be talking about what the city, with the lieutenant, we'll be talking about how the city is dealing with this. We're all, at all levels of government, trying to surround the issue, because as all of you are here, and I quickly did a 5-minute focus group to say, why are you here? And it seems like most of you are e-bike riders and concerned citizens. You want safety, but you want to be able to enjoy your e-bikes. That's what we're trying to figure out how to best do. So let me kind of dive into this. First of all, thank you for coming today. Another beautiful day in Huntington Beach, isn't it? Wonderful. Everybody should go out and ride their bikes. So as you know, many of you have already said you've received my weekly mail that updates what's going on in Sacramento, and I represent the 72nd Assembly District, which includes from Seal Beach, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, Laguna Beach. So I have these coastal cities, and this is the e-bike issue, and there are a lot of coastal issues that I'm addressing in Sacramento, but we'll focus on e-bikes. It's so important to our coastal cities. And then I go inland, Laguna Woods, Laguna Hills, Aliso Viejo, and Lake Forest. So, just as the mayor said, e-bikes have become an extremely popular mobility device for all ages, as I can see in this room. But as we all know, they pose, if not operated correctly or in a safe manner, they pose serious public safety issues, and if they're not operated safely. This month, since we returned to Sacramento, I introduced 2 bills, AB 1773 and AB 1774, both which address e-bike safety. And so the bills were introduced I think it was like January 4th, so it's just beginning the process. We haven't had hearings on it, but it has been assigned to the Transportation Committee, so I'm very pleased about that. Sometimes they don't move out of rules, so I'm pleased they've been assigned to the Policy Committee. So we've already heard from people who are concerned, have a fear that we're going to ban or prohibit e-bikes. We're not, no one could do that. It's just not possible. So my bills certainly do not do that. So just to be clear on that, all we want to do is working with our law enforcement and our local cities to find ways to educate people on all riders, all ages on e-bike safety, and to determine as we go forward, how do we enforce this? It's very difficult, and I'll get into some of that. There are some safety issues. According to the California Highway Patrol, e-bike crash injuries are typically more severe than conventional bike crashes, and obviously that's not surprising because of the speeds and the weight of the bicycles. My Assembly Bill 1773 will be called, if passed and signed by the governor, the California Boardwalk Safety Act. So here we are right along the Huntington Beach Boardwalk, which will allow local governments to regulate the use of e-bikes on beach boardwalks. Many of you know, if you follow me, local control is a really big deal. And it's being taken away. We want to reinstate that local control so our law enforcement can have the control to keep our community safe and our citizens safe. As we know, the boardwalks are crowded with families, children, pedestrians, pets, walking along the beach and the boardway. Obviously, it's destination. We want the people to come into our cities. I mean, that's why we have beautiful cities, to invite the world to come in, but we have to be safe. E-bikes are typically heavier than the conventional bike, as we know, and makes it more difficult to stop or maneuver, specifically in pedestrian-heavy areas. I worked on the e-bike issue when I was on the Newport Beach City Council for 8 years, and technically it's not a boardwalk, it's called a promenade. There are different widths on boardwalks. The one in Newport Beach that goes along the beach on the peninsula in Newport Beach is the promenade. It has been called that for 100 years, but people think it's a bike path. So, so bikes of all kinds are on there, and it's been very difficult to enforce speed. A funny story, not so funny, but working with the Newport Beach Police several years ago, we have volunteer people out there to try to tell people to slow down, and oftentimes these volunteers are met with coarse language or gestures to say, we're going to go as fast as we want. So the police had an idea, or Public Works had an idea, to put one of those speed signs that you see along streets where law enforcement's trying to get you to slow down to recognize how fast you're going. So what do you think happened when we put the speed signs on a sign?
They went faster. See how fast I can go.
Exactly. What a disaster that was. Everybody wanted to break the speed limit and break the machine to see how fast they go up to 50 miles per hour. So then we tried to put kind of rubber elevated mat on there to make it bumpy, to slow it down. Then we had the Segway stand-up vertical machines one of those wouldn't be a problem, but the bike rental companies would have 30 people on these Segways, and it'd be a long trail. So everybody wants to come to our cities. We don't want to discourage that. Visitor economic impact is really important to all of our cities. We just have to figure out a way to be safe. So my bill, the 1773 bill, seeks to provide local government the enforcement tools to regulate the speeds and usage of the bikes on our crowded boardwalks. And I'll get into the detail. And 1774 will, I didn't know about this, tell me if you know about this, prohibit the sale of a product or device that modifies the speed of an e-bike beyond the definition of an e-bike. They're called tuning kits. Are you familiar with tuning kits? Yes. See, I didn't know this. My Capitol staff would help me put all this together, informed me. So that 1774 would prohibit, and we've determined that the largest, or the way most everyone obtains that or purchases them online is through Amazon. So this bill would prohibit the sale of these tuning kits, because as you know better than I, these tuning kits can manipulate the speed rate. They're the speed regulator, and I guess, does anybody know how fast they could go with a tuning kit?
60 miles.
How much? 50?
60.
So, you better dismantle your tuning kit. So that's one other way to come at the speed control issue. As you probably know, there are several different classifications. California state law defines 3 classes of e-bikes. I'll give anybody $1 if they can identify all 3 classes. It's hard, I can't figure out, it's just the size of the motor. But class 1 and class 2 e-bikes may not exceed, what is the maximum speed limit on class 1 and class 2? 20. What is the speed limit on your boardwalk? 10. Newport Beach is 8. So we'd have a gap, trying to get people to go to 8 or 10.
To be classified as a 1 and 2 bike cannot be made to go faster than 20 miles an hour, or is that just?
Well, they come at 20, and we'll let the lieutenant speak to how we enforce down to 10. Newport Beach is 8. It's a problem. Class 3 requires the rider to be 16 years or older and must wear a bicycle helmet. So ironically, the heaviest, the most powerful e-bike at least comes under state vehicle code requirements, and so that helps deal with that. But how many of you have seen, not to pick on young people, but very young people, young early teenager years, without helmets,
High school.
with 2 people on a bike?
Yeah.
All the time.
3?
Three.
Oh my
I go
gosh.
by Mason View almost every.
Oh my gosh. So we'll give that challenge to the lieutenant, see how he's dealing with it. So the tuning kits are software devices primarily bought online that plug into an e-bike and override the manufacturer speed controls. These devices modify the e-bike to exceed the legally permitted speed for the e-bike classification. When exceeding the legal speeds, these e-bikes are closer to mopeds, which require special licensing. E-bikes do not require any kind of licensing or training. But more to come. I've got my 2 bills. Other legislators of both parties are introducing. This has been going on for a couple of years now. So there's several different approaches that other people are doing. So all of us, bipartisan, bicameral, like the Senate and the Assembly, we're all coming together with different ways to deal with e-bike safety. Tuning kits are sold online. I did not know that they're advertised as being undetectable and easily deactivated. They are easy to install with YouTube videos showing step-by-step guides for installation. Modification of e-bikes outside the legal speed limits is unsafe, obviously, and can cause severe injury. These e-bikes, these modified e-bikes, are referred to as out-of-class electric vehicles. So this just makes the whole enforcement issue so complex. And so cities, and Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, all the beach cities are collecting data, and we know that there have been injuries. I don't know how accurate it is, but the State of California Highway Patrol is documenting in their California statewide integrated traffic record system. In 2022, there were known to be 225 crashes involving an e-bike, including 4 which resulted in fatal injuries. What we've learned, at least in Newport Beach when I was heavily involved in this, when I was on the council, is a lot of people don't report the injuries unless they're seriously injured.
It's true.
Some people are, but they just don't want to deal with it. So that distorts the injury rate. This reflects a significant increase from the previous year when there were only 80 e-bike crashes in 2021. So we know we have a problem, and not all incidents are reported. So the California Highway Patrol, in partnership with the Department of Transportation, the Department of Public Health, local bicycle organizations, hospital injury prevention coordinators, and cities have come together. You can see all the stakeholders in this issue. And to appease everyone is the challenge. And created the electric bicycle safety and training system. And the CHP's online e-bike safety and training program is designed to help riders of all abilities and all ages identify potential hazards while offering information on safe riding practices. Okay, how many of you, you're e-bike riders, raise your hand. How many of you have been trained or you just hopped on the bike? Did you go through a training? You didn't have to? I've never ridden one.
Yeah.
What? Excuse me?
But not an e-bike, no?
We've been riding for 63 years, so. all
An
the-
e-bike?
No. I've been riding for 63 years, so you kind of know, you translate things, and you don't ride, you ride in the parking lot first to get used to the bike before you take it out on the street.
Okay, well, I think maybe it's more of a younger age situation where they don't have the young people have not learned how to drive a car, they don't know the rules of the road. Yeah, so we will learn more about that. So I support local government control, and I applaud Huntington Beach's efforts to keep the residents safe, as we all do. So from enforcement to education, the city needs to do what it can to teach appropriate use of e-bikes so they can be used by all members in all age groups, from seniors to families to our young people, but appropriately and safety. I know Huntington Beach, what the mayor said, and what Newport Beach and other cities have done. Now, San Clemente, I think, has banned e-bikes on the boardwalk. Newport Beach couldn't get support to do that, and the education in the schools has been challenging. So it's an ongoing process. I'll be interested to hear what the lieutenant has to say about education in schools. But as I said, e-bikes are a priority in the legislature in Sacramento this year. Many members are authoring bills related to e-bikes. This is not just an issue for my district or Orange County, it's a statewide issue. So I will continue to keep you updated. My job is to ensure that the state enacts laws to support our local officials and to keep everyone safe. And I am confident my bills will help ensure your officials can keep the boardwalk safe, and that tuning kits that alter speeds of e-bikes beyond legal limits are illegal. So let me turn it over to the council member, Casey. So it is all yours.
All right.
Tell us what Huntington Beach has been doing.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you guys for coming. When Grace and I first got elected, I met with the police chief. I was like, what's the number one issue in the city? He's like, e-bikes. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, over homelessness? He's like, yep. And so this whole last year, we've just been really focused on it, like what can we do to help out. The challenge is we really wanted to pursue like a license requirement. I feel a lot of the issues are with younger riders who don't understand the rules of the road. Recently, as of last October, when we passed our emergency ordinance, which I'll walk you guys through, it was deemed that's going to be too challenging to implement our own license program until the state does it. So then what we've done is, my alma mater, Marina High School last year, kicked it off, where in order to bring your e-bike on campus, you have to pass a safety course and get a registration essentially. And so now we've worked with our police departments, and every school by the end of this year in our districts will have that same requirement. And so what we're trying to do is then connect that out through the city, but it's going to be too challenging from a license perspective. So we said, okay, what else can we do? So we're working with all the e-bike rental businesses, and they will require for under 16 to view a safety video and pass a test before you can rent that e-bike, which is great. And then locally, the emergency ordinance that we passed this last October to give the police more enforcement tools was passed, and then it was codified into law end of October, and then the final ordinance was in November. And basically, just to kind of read to you guys, so what that does is it gives the police department more impoundment mechanisms as well, so they can impound bikes for breaking rules, or illegal bikes like Sirons and those pocket bikes. Those are straight up illegal. The ones that don't have any pedals, I'm sure you guys have seen them. Those are not meant for any roadways. It's all on private land. So those right away, if there's no pedals, that's an illegal bike, impound immediately. And then the other enforcements we had were for essentially driving in unsafe manners. So it says no person shall ride a conventional bicycle, electric bicycle, moped, motor-driven cycle, electric motorcycle, pocket bike, or any other electric conveyance not previously named in an unsafe manner on a public roadway, highway, sidewalk, park, or private property open to the public. And then unsafe manner means a rider violating any existing Huntington Beach Municipal Code, California Vehicle Code, or other existing law. An unsafe manner can also be defined as operating the conveyance in such a way as to constitute a danger to the operator, a passenger, other motorists, other riders, or pedestrians in the area. It says examples of riding in an unsafe manner may include, but are not limited to, the following: riding on a sidewalk without due caution for pedestrians, riding on a sidewalk, highway, bicycle path, or bicycle lane against the flow of traffic, not yielding to vehicles or pedestrians when required to by California Vehicle Code, intentionally swerving or riding around stopped or slowed traffic, operating a conveyance in a manner it was not designed for, including carrying passengers when not designed for carrying passengers, not obeying posted signs, a person under the age of 18 riding without a properly fitted or fastened helmet, intentionally lifting one or more wheels into the air while riding on a highway, sidewalk, bicycle lane, or bicycle path, and lastly, riding on a bicycle path, bicycle lane, or sidewalk at a speed greater than 25 miles an hour, or any speed greater than is reasonable or prudent under the conditions then existing, or at a speed which endangers the safety or persons or property. So what this does is it gives our police more enforcement tools, but they still have discretion, right? We don't want to be big government, and the last thing I want to do, or we want to do, is do the job of parents. But it's frustrating because, as you guys all know, at least I feel this way when I drive around the city now, I always drive very slow, and then when I make a right turn, I always look in my right mirror in case someone's coming up quick and going to T-bone. And the issue is these kids, they don't know the rules of the road, right? And so through this mechanism, and the lieutenant will get into it, you know, we've had great success going to some schools, doing some kind of random enforcement, and when school starts and when school ends, and I've actually received good feedback from residents saying they've seen kids on the curb, little tears in their eyes because they're either getting written up or they're not providing who they are, and the cops are going to let them know, like, this is not okay anymore, and the word's getting out. And I'm hoping that the party's over, but it's going to be a continual process. And so by working with what we can do here locally, and then working with Diane through the state, we're hoping to eventually get like a license program to really kind of codify that. But this is a great first step to give us local control and just more tools that allow our police to really make sure we're all, you know, because not just the kids that are, and everybody, right? It's the other residents, it's people in their cars. It's just really unsafe, and it's actually scary. So, and Lieutenant Archer will go through kind of what we're doing and some metrics.
One question.
Yeah.
What about helmets? Why aren't helmets mandatory? I mean, like motorcycles. I mean, they're the same type of vehicle almost.
So under 18,
nobody's pushing.
Under 18, you have to have a helmet.
No, that's not enough. These older guys are just as bad.
Do you have to, for a helmet, is it?
For a Class 3 e-bike, by definition, you're supposed to have a helmet, but if you're under 18, everyone has to have a
Class
helmet.
3.
Class 3, yeah.
And do you enforce on that?
Well, it depends, because, well, I can tell, I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
want
get up
to-
there, yeah. Jump in.
You're up.
I feel like the seat just got hotter and hotter now.
I warmed it up for you.
I don't know where to start, but I'll kind of start just a little bit about what we did, some of the barriers to enforcement, I guess, if you will, some of the things that we've been doing, and then obviously what we're looking kind of to do in the future. But they've talked about it a little bit already, or quite a lot actually. With the kind of the marquee thing that we did was create that new municipal code, which, as Casey read it to you, it gives us the ability to enforce a lot of different things that we weren't able to enforce before. Because of the challenges that we talked about with the different classes of bikes, it's confusing. Like you all probably just read that in front of you, but without looking at it right now, you probably still haven't committed to memory the difference between Class 1, Class 2, Class 3 e-bike. And then, you can't tell by looking at them. And then there's also the ones that don't fit into either of them, right? Like the Surons that aren't even e-bikes. And so, to expect a police officer to know, A, what the difference is, and then B, what law then applies to said class of bike or non-bike or pocket bike, it was challenging for us, right? Because we have a number of different things that we're responsible for knowing as police officers. Not that we can't learn new things, but it's hard to know what exactly we're supposed to do and what we're supposed to enforce. And a lot of it is kind of uncharted territory. Not to mention, vehicle codes, by definition, can only be enforced on roadways. And this gives us the ability on private property with public access, like Seacliff Shopping Center or the shopping center across from Marina High School or some of these other places where a lot of times these e-bikes will congregate, gives us the ability to enforce the municipal code on that private property. So it really gave us a kind of a local control tool that makes it easier. And since inception, we've had 45 citations to people just specifically for that municipal code, over and above the other citations. I think in 2023 you wrote, and that was just in 2023.
And that was what, two months?
2 months.
2 months, yeah.
Yeah, and we wrote over 276 citations to e-bicyclists in 2023. And that's all different variations, right? So it's easy to say, okay, this person just ran a stop sign, and that's easy, we know what the vehicle code is. But it also gives us the ability to lessen the enforcement, right? If we see a 15-year-old kid who just happened to roll through a stop sign, and you don't want to write him a moving violation like the same you would, we can write him a civil citation for a monetary fee of $125. It doesn't take away our discretion from issuing them a citation and then making them go, or giving them the option to go to a bicycle education class, which would then reduce, kind of like traffic school, and reduce the citation to just a class. So that's one of the many things we've been doing. We've also been trying to do a lot of education and outreach. We host bicycle rodeos. We have 2 separate grants from the state through Office of Traffic Safety, one of which is specifically for bicycle and pedestrian enforcement. We do bike rodeos with the schools. We do Tuesday night street fairs. We have people come out and pass out educational material. We partner with the schools, like we said, when Marina High School started, in every school now through a partnership. We host the class, or we facilitate the class. We provide the licensing for them, and then the schools administer it, so that's nice. So you have to have a sticker. So if they're going to park their bike on campus, they have to have gone through one of those things. We did a Facebook Live campaign. We did Traffic Tip Tuesdays on our social media accounts. We've done a number of different educational outreaches to try and reach as many people as possible. The problem is there's a certain percentage of the population that just doesn't care, right? And then that's obviously kind of where the enforcement angle comes in from our perspective, right? We try and do education, engineering from a public works side, and then enforcement. And if for those of you that are locals here, you know along our bike path, we've had a number of different engineering things. They've had some traffic calming devices on the boardwalk up closer by the bluffs. They've added a 3rd lane of travel, so you have pedestrians on one side, bikes on the other. So we're doing a number of things, right, from all kind of the 3 E's, from education, engineering, and enforcement. But there's still, more to be done. And like I said, it is confusing a little bit for the cops, if they don't know specifically what type of bike you're dealing with. Everybody knows what car is. Car has a VIN number, car has a license plate. I'm serious, like it's a little bit of a joke, but the law is confusing for the Class 1, Class 2, Class 3. You gotta be 16, you gotta have a bike. It's 28 miles, but you have to have pedals, but 20 miles for Class 2, but you can go 20 miles an hour. And then, again, it's easy for them to manipulate. I mean, there are a number of people that we've stopped that are going 50 plus miles an hour on these Surons, because all you have to do is cut a wire on a limiter, and then next thing you know, the bike will be able to go upwards of 50, 60 miles an hour.
And does it get impounded?
Yeah, it can. So there wasn't a real clear path for impounding these bikes, if you will, before. But this municipal code allows us to now impound bikes of juveniles who have committed violations, and then we'll release it to a responsible adult once they've been issued a citation.
Is the bike fixed?
Well, we can't make them fix the bike per se, because they're illegal to possess, but they're not legal to ride on the street, right? So like if you have property in Bishop where you're gonna go ride, you can do that. However, we can't say, just like if you had a hot rod or a Porsche that you only take to the track, we can't make it street legal unless it's on the street.
Why are they making it so difficult? Why have classes? They're electric. They're like a car. Do you have class cars, motorcycles? I mean, they go up.
That's a
the
great
CC
question
goes
for an
99
assemblywoman.
out.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's a state law, right? It's a state law, and there's not much I can do about that. However,
Maybe
to
we should look at it.
speak to local control, that was kind of our way of circumventing that, right? Like, wait, there was a lot of confusing information, and we wanted a catch-all section that we would be able to enforce kind of unilaterally, and we know this act is unsafe, we're just gonna cite him for being unsafe, simple, right? And that's the kind of the beauty of local control, and we kind of took matters into our own hands like that, and it's been working for
And it
us.
just cuts through the classes.
Just cuts through the classes, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I have a two-part comment question.
I think you only get one, is that right?
Well, it addresses two different
All right, okay.
areas.
We'll allow it.
One, I want to thank you for championing this in Sacramento.
Sure.
And what I heard from you is that there's still more to come.
Well, from other legislators, and we're all working, and I was just asking the mayor, your municipal code proposal passed unanimously, right?
Yep.
Honestly, everyone is supportive, everybody I talk to in Sacramento. There may be a little nuances here or there. One legislator, she represents down south near San Diego, I didn't understand the logic, this was last year, she didn't want to require electric bike riders to stop at a stop sign, and that was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But there's something about bike riders, because of the safety issue of cars turning right, just to let them keep going. That was defeated. She's a very smart gal, she had a logic to it. We just didn't understand it, but we are all working for the same thing.
Because my issue is the age.
Yeah.
I believe everyone in this room could safely ride an
Yes.
e-bike and
Yes.
appropriately ride
Correct.
an e-bike. It's the age issue, and I came here to absolutely come unglued, and I would never do that to you because I believe you're brilliant.
Oh.
About the, why just class 3? Why not all e-bikes? For 16.
Well,
I'll wait, I'll be patient.
I
Sometimes
agree
it
with you,
takes a
just
while.
hearing this today,
Yeah.
my staff is standing by. Raise your hand, Kristen and Brittany. They're listening to this and taking good notes. I'm going to look into this. Why is, just to the gentleman said, the electric cars, one classification, why do we have these now that they've become so, there's so many gray areas, they've
Yeah.
melded together?
And then I want to thank the city council members for this emergency ordinance that I was not following. I'm sorry. It was brilliant, because my issue today, I came here because you literally defined every issue I have with
Huh.
e-bikes. I have
Great.
We have a gang of e-bikers in our neighborhood that come from outside. They're not the kids in our neighborhood, but they come in and ride in our long stretches of driveway-less roadway and do absolutely everything you described in that ordinance. And cars are honking when they use our private property and driveways to stop
Are
because
you in the
they're-
horse track? Where do you live?
Yeah, where do you live?
It's,
Right off Main Street.
Summerfield.
it's Summerfield with the Drew Park, because we have two long stretches of Drew Park. And then, when I called the police last week for the 9th time, the officer showed up and said she couldn't do anything about it, and left a minor on the ground injured. And I was devastated by it.
What did you want, what could the police have done, or did you call the paramedics or anything? or-
I called the non-emergency number to have the officer try to do something. The kid was complaining his back hurt, and another young man was tending to him when the officer came, and I questioned her. I said, did you call paramedics? And she said the kid didn't want it. And I said, well, did you call the parents? And she said no, and then just drove away. So it's just, I felt like I had no idea what you were doing, and I came here to say, what are you doing? And you're obviously doing a lot, but are your patrol officers also being included in the training about the emergency?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and I don't have all the information.
Okay.
We can talk offline afterwards if you want, and I can look into it and let you know. There may or may not be more to the story, but you have to remember too, that for us to enforce for an infraction, it has to be committed in our presence, right? Like, there's a couple different, not to get too deep
No,
into
no, I know all
law.
that
Okay.
because
All right, well.
I'm well educated.
So
in
if the kid's
area.
already on the ground, there's not much we're gonna do as far as enforcement. And if the kid or adult or whoever says they don't want anything done, we're not gonna have the firemen come out there and tell them to be, okay, oh, we're gonna release you AMA and say it's against medical advice. That's a waste of resources. And if they're not seriously injured, it really, probably, when they said not, maybe she was a little bit short with you, and obviously, we don't want that either, but there's a chance there's 3 calls stacked up, they're trying to get to the next one, and there wasn't an enforcement action to be taken there, and there wasn't a medical service to provide, so.
But I guess I guess I'm going too far into the weeds. She said there was nothing she could do about e-bikes, and it's 2% of her time. Like, she didn't even say, hey, if I caught them doing wheelies and riding up on private property and doing all the things in
Yeah.
the emergency ordinance, I would say, okay, I'll call a little sooner, and before the helmetless kid
Yeah.
falls in the street and hurts himself.
Yeah, and so, right, like, again, not having all the information, I don't know, but I'm here to tell you that we are doing things, as you know, like we talked about,
Yeah.
the numbers show that we're doing things, but believe it or not, they're not that easy to catch. These kids will
They're
run
not.
from you.
Yeah.
Like it's not like the old days. Like, they run from you, and for us to catch them in a car is not. I mean, we have motor cops, right? We dedicate enforcement to that. We have another grant, a justice assistance grant that we are going to be using to strictly target school hours. So like at lunchtime, at the end of the day, like, we're going to deploy mass resources, hopefully mostly motorcycle officers. And I'm not going to sit here and complain about resources, but we're down.
To me, that's key, right, is like to kind of ratchet it up and then get the message out and then increase enforcement and then hit the hot spots, like times of school.
Well,
But I'm saying,
yes,
like, yeah.
I think something good happened, whatever happened, because the one kid that never wears a helmet is now wearing a helmet. So
Yeah.
I do want to end on a positive.
Oh.
And we're
We'll
seeing
take
like, so we're trying to go to every single school elementary and like just do like random enforcements and try to get the hot spots when they're going to school and then they're leaving at lunch and then get them and then they
Well,
get the messages out.
every weekend, Drew Park is a hot spot.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right.
We'll have someone out there
Keep
this
going.
weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. We'll
Can
we'll-
you write citations after the fact? Should a citizen collect video evidence and be willing to testify as to the chain of custody of that evidence?
You can for misdemeanors, however, right, so there's infractions, misdemeanors, felonies. Not to bore you with details, but a misdemeanor, we can arrest for certain misdemeanors not committed in our presence. Other ones you can if you're willing to sign a private person's arrest. But all of these bicycle ones are infractions by definition of the code. So it has to be witnessed by the police officer.
By a peace officer?
Yes.
Does the new law, or what was passed by the city council?
Ordinance, yeah.
Ordinance?
Yeah.
Does that give Huntington Beach the right to establish, there are bicycles, and then there are motorized cycles? Because it seems like it would be a simple thing to eliminate the class 1, class 2 locally. I don't know if it
Yeah,
allows
so that's
us to do
essentially,
that.
that's like de facto what we did, right? Because you're right, there are bicycles, there's motor-driven cycles, there's mopeds, there's electric motorcycles, and there's e-bikes. There's all these different stats.
No,
But
anything
No.
that has a motor
that's what we did.
is now a motorized cycle.
Yeah, so when Councilmember McKeon read off the ordinance, that's when he said all of these different things.
Right.
Unsafe maneuvers by any of these things, cite them for this section, simple. So we don't have to worry about that. if
It's a
we're gonna
ca- it's
say-
a catch-
Seems like it could be
catch-all.
simplified just with.
Well, it's a
the
catch-all, it
classification.
gives them discretion, it's a catch-all to cover every type of bicycle like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
They're not street legal to begin with.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Impound those immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's impact there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why are there why are there signs on the beach that say no motorized vehicles?
I don't think that they're patently illegal. Is that what you're asking?
You're saying no motorized vehicles, so that means a Lifer is a motorized vehicle?
Yeah, but I don't, we wouldn't put a sign up for something that isn't illegal. It's not illegal to
No,
have
it
an
says
e-bike.
It is illegal to ride a motorized vehicle on the bike.
Those are old signs from
Old
before
signs,
e-bikes.
yeah.
Oh, so you're saying there are signs?
Yeah.
I don't know where those are at. That would be a public,
Well, they had, Newport Beach has the same signs, no motorized vehicles, that's prohibited, and we know the reality.
Is that not the law? I mean, if you're on a motorized vehicle, you should be.
I think it's municipal law, I'm not gonna say law.
Yeah, that's, so, valid question, I don't
Sign says
know,
no motorized.
I hear you, the valid question, I don't know the answer to that, I'd have to look into it, and I'll find out from our public works folks, from the signs, and from our city attorney, because I don't know where those are at, I believe you they're everywhere, if they are, but, I'll look into that and see. The other thing is too, is that when these things change, you know, there's a cost, right, to replacing signs and doing everything else. We did have to do some re-signage on the beach down here. One of them was my recommendation. If you'll see, like, there's a big 10 mile an hour, then 5 mile an hour, the pedestrian, because we used to have these signs that had a bunch of different municipal codes that you couldn't read at speed anyway. But we have some new signage in there. We have the flashing lights. We have some radar feedback signs, which, you're right, sometimes people try and like accelerate. But we said, let's not put them right by the pier, so we put them farther down. But yeah, so I'll look into that, and I'll see what we can find out. Yes, sir.
Yeah, speaking of hotspots, is Talbot Elementary School considered middle school, Talbot Middle School, is that considered under the control of Huntington Beach?
Talbot Middle School?
Talbert's in Fountain Valley, isn't it?
I think it's Fountain.
Yeah, it's Fountain
That's not
Valley.
one of our schools.
I think it's in Fountain Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah, jurisdictionally for enforcement, it would be Fountain.
But that school district now, by the end of this year, will have implemented the safety class to bring your bike on campus.
Good. That's a super hotspot.
Yeah.
Somebody over here had a question.
Thank you.
And of course,
I don't, about 3 or 4 months ago, I spoke in front of the council about this problem, as well as all the violations along the pier, which is, there's supposed to be no skateboards, no bikes, no anything, you know, everybody's on the pier. My wife and I have problems walking there, we're afraid we'll be hit. We get some close calls, even just crossing PCH, because kids are doing wheelies across red lights on PCH. So I spoke to the council, and by gosh, they passed an emergency, what's it called?
Ordinance.
Code, an emergency code.
Yeah.
And I thank you for that. It's, at least
Yeah.
that's going in the right direction.
Thank you.
And that's well done. But I'd also like to ask the police about enforcement. I work for the police. I do I'm a volunteer. I work for the Officer Sunville there. And I see a lot of, sometimes a policeman will give maybe a little bit of warning to a person, or just sit there and talk to them. But I've never seen, all the times I walked along the pier and I walked along Main Street, I've never seen a police officer give a citation where somehow it gets to the kid's parents and there could be some repercussions. The other thing about training kids, a lot of kids, hey, they just don't care. I've seen it. I volunteer for the police, I've seen it. There's just no respect. They know we're just volunteers. And it's just, I think that maybe what you need is some teeth to support this, and give some citations, get the parents involved, show them the kids are violating the laws, they're going through red lights, they're doing wheelies, they're violating the emergency citation.
Yeah.
And I believe that in all criminals, if criminals are given some punishment, some kind of punishment, like raising criminals, some kind of punishment, then maybe it could start helping people, the word will get out, especially
sure.
when kids in high school.
It's not just kids.
Is it?
Yeah.
And I don't want to, the police do a great job on community relations, which I think we should do and respect. But I think they also need to have a little more teeth on kids, or what you're saying, the adults that are violating these codes and placing the people in danger. And I was glad, during that time when I was addressing the council, there were some major issues going on. There was some real hatred going on, it seemed like, between groups. But when I did this, I said, well, I'm just going to talk about bikes, you know. So I went up there, and I was the only one that did. I got some support.
Yep.
People were behind me, and I was glad to hear that.
for sure. No, we focused on,
I'm
like,
just
yeah.
talking some enforcement, at least the kids that live in Huntington Beach.
Yeah, I mean, like I said up there, is like we have a lot of input from residents saying they've seen enforcement, mostly with younger people at schools, on the curb, bikes getting impounded, tears falling down cheeks, so, you know, the word gets out, you know. I've noticed a difference in my neighborhood. I mean, there's got one kid in my neighborhood, and she's driving slower, she now has a helmet, and her sister's not on the back of the bike, which is good, so, again, just like data points I've seen that's happened, but again, it's complicated. Police officers can't be everywhere at once. But we are like laser focused on it.
I mean, I give those things right away.
Yeah.
And I was walking on Main Street and the big place where they rent the bikes, they tell the people, the families, the kids, they tell me exactly, don't ride on the sidewalks and going through all that. And my wife and I walked by, and there were like 5 of them in that family. They were going on the sidewalk, and it just about did us. We had to just get out of the way. They're going straight down the middle of the sidewalk. Like the next block over, after we passed this guy talking to him about the safety rules. And
Yeah.
I said, yeah, you can educate people, but
I know.
that doesn't mean they're gonna follow what they learn.
I don't know.
So did you have
Are
a,
we not a sanctuary city? Can we tell the state that, you know what?
I don't know what that has to do with what we're talking about, but.
Make our own laws on these e-bikes and stuff.
Asked and answered, yes.
I'd like to take this in a
Yes.
slightly different direction as well, about kind of coexistence of all kinds of means of mobility. So, for instance, technically the state has a law that the vehicle is not, the motor vehicle is not supposed to pass a cyclist with less than 3 feet of clearance.
No.
That happens all the time.
Same with cops, by the way.
I've
Yeah.
never seen any enforcement, I've never seen a warning, anything of the sort. Secondly, for a mixed-use place like the boardwalk, one of the things that can help tremendously is to both coach pedestrians to have a little more awareness. I've had people step out in front of me without looking and, you know, have to come to a hard stop. But there's also things that we cyclists can do, like I have a bell on my bike. So anytime I'm in any proximity to pedestrians, I'm ringing the bell so they know I'm coming, and I try to give them as much clearance as I possibly can, and if it's crowded, I'm going to slow down so I don't startle them. So I think we can do a lot with education and coexistence that isn't getting done also.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Disagree with kids being able to be taught that. I was a crossing guard, and they don't obey any rules. And I'm supposed to control the intersection
Right.
before I let them go.
So,
And as soon as the light would turn green, or I step my 1 foot off, they're gone.
yeah, and that is tough, right? Like this boardwalk, they're supposed to be going 5 miles an hour when children are present. I also live in Huntington Beach. I raise my kids here in Huntington Beach. They play flag football in Huntington, play soccer in Huntington. We surf here all the time. Both of my kids are in the Junior Guard program, and we saturate this area during the first couple weeks of summer because you've got all these kids from 8 to 15 years old that are in and out of this traffic, and it's hot, and then people from out of town are up and down this boardwalk. So we are there, you're right, education's a component. I know like the Junior Guard instructors are telling the kids that are here to make sure that they're looking both ways before they're crossing. But you're right, it really is incumbent upon the cyclist, technically speaking, to make sure that you're going to yield the traffic and obey the speed limit. So, but the education component is huge, and we're doing that, right? Like, but I don't know what else we can do. And I'm not saying we're throwing our hands up and we're moving along just to enforcement, but like I said, we've done all of the school programs, we've done the online stuff. We made a video that we're going to give to the rental companies to talk about safety with all the tips and everything else. We've done as many campaigns and rodeos and easy ups and you name it. We've come down here. We had an operation where we came down here and we just stopped people. This is probably 2 years ago now, just to warn people. Not that you guys care about this, but 50% of people are like, yeah, you guys should be down here more often, and the other people are, you have nothing better to do with your time. You know, it was a little more polarized back then. Now I think most people, it's kind of galvanized. I think most people are on the same
But
sheet
there
of
is
music with this
no
one.
enforcement on the path.
Well, there is. I mean, I've got 276 citations in 2023.
On the bike path?
Specifically?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I couldn't tell you exactly.
I don't mind air shows
Bike
here.
path, 4 times
There's
a
so
week.
many people on the boardwalk, and those kids were still going. Didn't stop them at all.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
surprised nobody got killed on that.
yeah, and you have to remember too, right? We have 16 fatal collisions every year, roughly, on average, somewhere between 12 and 19. We had 16 last year, 16 the year before that. None of them were down here. A lot of them were involving vehicles. And it's incumbent upon us as a city. Now, we're talking about e-bikes here, but a lieutenant in charge of a traffic bureau, right? We want to enforce the laws that are the primary collision factors for the most dangerous and most serious injuries, right? And the reality is, it's not e-bikes. E-bikes, kids are getting hurt. Our e-bike collisions are up 56%. That's because there's less analog bikes, and people are getting hurt. And there is a problem with underreporting traffic collisions on e-bikes because a lot of times people will get in an accident with an e-bike and they'll just get up and dust themselves off or go to the hospital or get transported and no traffic reports taken. Everybody knows when you crash 2 cars on PCH, you call the police, they come out and they take a report. But a lot of times people are crashing e-bikes either into each other or by themselves, and those get underreported. There are some mechanisms in place where they're trying to get better data on e-bike collisions by collecting information from like the hospitals as opposed to traffic collision reports, because it's an imperfect system. We've done a very good job. SWITRS, which is what you're talking about, the California database that CHP administers, they will take all of the information. We have a way to capture e-bike data, but that's only when a collision report is taken. So it's an imperfect system, but yes,
You know,
sir.
I'll just say the Newport Beach experience, this is a couple years old, about 2 years ago. We hired this ambassador program. They were paid, but they were not police officers. They would wear their yellow safety jackets, and they'd be on the weekends positioned all along the 7-mile promenade or bike path. And they would say, slow down, and they'd literally get flipped off. But they would report, they would do this as all data gathering, and they would report over 600, they would witness over 600 speeding electric bikes. And a part of that, a very small portion, they would call ahead to an officer who was stationed at the pier or something, say, here come these bikes, look for them. And so out of the hundreds of e-bikes, the officers get a very small percentage because we can't have an officer on every corner. And it's just setting
Yeah.
an example for deterrence purposes.
And to your point about the air, someone mentioned the air show. We didn't have any traffic collisions during the air show. We do some traffic calming during the U.S. Open, believe it or not, like with the metal gateways. If you guys came down for U.S. Open, so that people have to get off their bikes and do some other things too. So we do take that into consideration. But yes, sir.
Yeah, we almost got into this topic that I'm very interested in, instead of like continuing to complain about kids these days and how they're driving their e-bikes too fast. We've done, I think, the work to start to solve that issue. But I'm more concerned about e-bikes are wonderful, they're great, they're getting more of us out of our cars and onto two-wheeled vehicles to get around town. What are we going to do on the whole transportation system side to make our roads safer for our two-wheeled vehicles? Slowing down our traffic, having protected bike lanes, really protected, not with a painted line, but with bollards, K-rails, things that keep cars from being able to accidentally strike bicyclists.
So I don't want to speak out of turn here because I'm just a cop, but I do know that we have a comprehensive mobility plan that's being studied by our, do you want to talk about it?
No, go for it.
Oh, because I don't have all the, I don't want to like misspeak, but
No.
you probably know more than me, but we have a comprehensive mobility plan that's in the works now that our Public Works Department is administrating through Tool Consulting, and they're trying to identify some areas. We have done some things. I know they're not bollards, but they have improved some bicycle boulevard and some other big infrastructure changes to have safe corridors of travel for bicycles. I know they're talking about doing other things, and I'll let you talk to me there.
No, yeah,
I
we
know
have,
that they're looking at it.
Yeah, there's good examples like on Springdale, the green posts, and then moving the bike lane inside where there's parked cars to shield as well. So there is a mobility plan that we're working on implementing, studying. It's obviously very expensive in certain areas, but it is in process.
Because to push our kids off the sidewalks onto the streets, we need to make our streets safer.
For sure. Totally. And there's physical limitations as well in certain streets, so it's very complex, but.
Well, we can have 9-foot lanes instead of 12-foot.
Right.
Another thing to know about that is that the city doesn't control it by the state, so they don't have any control.
Well,
Yeah.
that's true. Okay, well, I'll get you and then you. Yes.
The 1773 just for the boardwalk, what about the streets inland of PCH?
Well, that just addresses the boardwalk. And what about the streets?
Inland,
Well, that's another opportunity. Tell me what you would like to see done.
well, that's where a lot of the violations are being made on the.
Just the interiors,
on
the city
PCH.
streets.
Yes, the city streets.
Well, that's what.
Well, I think
you
that,
folks
yeah, so I think what we're doing locally addresses that, and what she's trying to do is allow, because a lot of the boardwalk crosses over state property, right?
Right.
Yeah, so like Huntington Beach, city line is Beach Boulevard, north of Golden West, that's City Beach, and then south of Beach is State Beach, and then north of Golden West is State Beach. So her bill addresses all of that, including the state.
And then just getting, prohibiting that speed device, this tuning device. So
Right.
hopefully that eventually cuts into the people who modify the speed.
And that's statewide.
And that's state,
statewide, yeah.
so that will affect whatever streets. You know, on the interior streets, what this gentleman was talking about, in Newport Beach again, and other cities have had the same issues. Parking is such a premium in our beach cities, and to widen the bike paths, you are probably eliminating parking.
Yep.
And it's just,
One last question.
okay, that's a real challenge to accommodate the parked cars on the street, the bike lane, and then the
Park
pass.
and ride with trolley.
Yeah.
What was did you have a question back here?
It was more of a statement, so I'm on the Public Works Commission, and we are currently going through the infrastructure scorecard.
Right.
You know, one of the things that is being addressed are city streets and mobility and access. All of that is in the scorecard. So hopefully that's going to be completed in the next, I think, month or two.
Yep.
And then that'll go out to the council members and also to the city to review.
That's great. That's good.
All right.
But we can stay after.
Yeah.
Just one more. Where does liability insurance fit into this? If we could classify anything with a motor as needing liability insurance.
It's interesting.
And it
It's an
seems to
idea.
me like it's
Assemblywoman.
basic. When
Yeah,
I used to
like
ride a little mini bike,
Yep.
it was illegal. As soon as I got on a motorcycle, I had to have liability. And
Right.
these are motorcycles.
Well, you're right. I know, I'm not
I
aware.
like that angle a lot.
I'm not aware of
Bike
anybody
should
who's,
not be even in this discussion.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that. That's a good opportunity to look into. Thank you.
That's a good idea.
I did not
It's
know.
just
All right.
more can of worms.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Yeah.